Well, hello everyone and welcome to SuperSuperMarcel Halloween special. Today since it's Halloween, as you can see, my hair is not messed up. There we go. Now it's messed up for the Halloween, but also for my costume, I am wearing well, you decide, whatever attacks me on my side here. This is pretty much like a t-shirt, a cool t-shirt I got, which pretty much has a big, massive, gaping hole. And you decide, is it a shark that bit me, or is it my own dinosaurs? Was I secretly making dinosaurs? Or not? I don't know. But what are we doing for today, everyone? Well, today we are reading creepypasta. Since it's Halloween, because there's nothing else I could do. I could make a movie, but that would mean I have to get characters and all that, and I'll have to write a script. And trust me, it gets quite long doing all that. I only started on the Godzilla movie, so yeah. So yeah, I'm probably not a movie. And I was thinking of doing like a top 10 spooky dinosaur discoveries, but it actually turns out no, there's actually none, which is a shame. So, why not? Let's read a creepypasta. Which one exactly, though? Because there's so many creepypastas that I could read from. Well, one of my favorite creepypastas is Godzilla NES. Because it's just... I'm not going to tell you anything. Just read it for yourself. Pretty much this guy gets a copy of an old Godzilla NES game, and it's hellish. It's one of my favorite creepypasta stories, but Jesus, it's a long one. It's like 5 different stories of this one big, awesome story. You should read it for yourself. Alright? But what am I going to read, you ask? I am going to read, what was it called again? The Russian sleep experiment. That's what it's called. Russian sleep experiment. I'm gonna be reading that while at the same time reenacting it. So that's gotta be something. Let's get to it.
The Russian researchers in the late 1940s kept 5 people awake for 15 days using an experimental gas-based stimulant. They were kept in sealed environment to carefully monitor their oxygen intake, so the gas didn't kill them. Since it was toxic in high concentrations, this was before closed circuit cameras, so they only had microphones and 5-inch thick glass porthole-sized windows into the chamber to monitor them. The chamber was stocked with books, cots to sleep on, but no bedding, running water and toilets, and enough dried food to last all 5 over a month. The test subjects were political prisoners deemed enemies of the state during World War II. Everything was fine for the first 5 days. The subjects hardly complained, having been promised falsely that they would be free if they submitted to the test and did not sleep for 30 days. Their conversations and activities were monitored, and it was noted that they continued to talk about increasingly traumatic incidents in their past, and the general tone of their conversations took on a darker aspect after the 4-day mark. After 5 days, they started to complain about circumstances and events that led them to where they were started and demonstrate severe paranoia. They stopped talking to each other and began alternately whispering to the microphone and one-way mirrored portholes. Oddly, they all seemed to think they could win the trust of the experiments by turning over their comrades, the other subjects, in captivity with them. At first, the researchers suspected this was an effect of the gas itself. After 9 days, the first of them started screaming. He ran the length of the chamber repeatedly, yelling at the top of his lungs for 3 hours straight. He continued to attempting to scream, but was only to produce occasional squeaks. The researchers postulated that he physically torn his vocal cords. The most surprising thing about the behavior is how the other captives reacted to it, or rather didn't react to it. They continued whispering to the microphone until the second of the captives started to scream. The two non-screaming captives took the books apart, smeared page after page with their only one feces, and pasted them calmly over the glass portholes. The screaming promptly stopped. And so did the whispering. After 3 more days passed, the researchers checked the microphones hourly to make sure that they were working, since they thought it possible that no sound could be coming with 5 people inside. The oxygen consumption in the chamber indicated that all 5 must still be alive. In fact, it was the amount of oxygen 5 people could not consume at a very heavy level of strenuous exercise. On the morning of the 14th day, the researchers did something they said they would not do to get a reaction from the captives. They used the intercom inside the chamber, hoping to provoke any response from the captives. They were afraid either dead or vegetables. They announced, "We are opening the chamber to test the microphones. Step away from the door and lie flat on the floor. We may consider letting you have your freedom." To their surprise, they heard a single phrase in a calm voice response, "We no longer want to be freed." Debate broke out among the researchers and the military forces funding the research. Unable to provoke any more response using the intercom, it was finally decided to open the chamber at midnight on the 15th day. The chamber was flushed off with the stimulant gas and filled with fresh air, and immediately voices from the microphone began to object. 3 different voices began begging, as if pleading for the life of loved ones, to turn the gas back on. The chamber was opened and the soldiers sent to retrieve the test subjects. They began to scream louder than ever, and so did the soldiers when they saw what was inside. 4 of the 5 subjects were still alive, although no one could rightly call the state that either of them was in life. In the struggle, one of the 4 living subjects had his spleen ruptured and he bled out almost immediately. The medical researchers attempted to sedate him, but this proved impossible. He was ejected with more than 10 times. The human dose of a morphine derivated and still fought like a cornered animal, breaking ribs and the arm of one of the doctors. When heart was seen to be beat for a full 2 minutes after he had bled out to point, there was no more air in the vascular system. Then blood, even after it stopped, he continued to scream and flail for another 3 minutes, struggling to attack anyone in reach, and just repeating the word more over and over, weaker and weaker, until he finally fell silent. The surviving 3 test subjects were heavily restrained and moved to a medical facility. The 2 with intact vocal cords continuously begging for the gas, demanding to be kept awake. The most injured of the 3 was taken to the only surgical operating room that the facility had. In the process of preparing the subject to have his organs placed back in his body, it was found that he was effectively immune to the sedative they had given to him to prepare him for the surgery. He fought furiously against the restraints when the anesthetic gas was brought to put him under. He managed to tear out most of his way through a 4-inch wide leather strap-on to the wrist, even though the weight of a 200-pound soldier holding that wrist as well. It took only a little more anesthetic than normal to put him under, and the instant his eyelids fluttered and closed, his heart stopped. In the autopsy of the test subject that died in the operating table, it was found that his blood had tripled the normal level of oxygen. His muscles that were attached to his skeleton were badly torn, and he had broken 9 bones in the struggle to not be subdued. Most of them were from the force his own muscles had exerted on them. The second survivor has been the first of the group of 5 to start screaming. His vocal cords destroyed, he was unable to beg or object to surgery, and he was only reacting by shaking his hands violently and disapproving when the anesthetic gas was brought near him. He shook his head yes when someone suggested reluctantly they try the surgery without anesthetic, and did not react for the entire 6-hour procedure of replacing his abdominal organs and attempting to cover them with what remains of his skin. The surgeon stated repeatedly that it should be medically possible for the patient to still be alive. One terrified nurse assisting the surgery stated that she had seen the patient's mouth curl into a smile several times whenever his eyes met hers. When the surgery ended, the subject looked at the surgeon and began to wheeze loudly, attempting to talk while struggling. Assuming this must be something of drastic importance, the surgeon had a pen and pad fetched to the patient could write this message. It was simple. Keep cutting. The other two test subjects were given the same surgery, both without anesthetic as well, although they had to be injected with a paralytic for the duration of the operation. The surgeon found it impossible to perform the operation while the patients laughed continuously. Once paralyzed, the subjects could only follow the attending researchers with their eyes. The paralytic cleared their systems in the abnormally short period of time, and they were soon trying to escape their bonds. The moment they could speak, they were again asked the estimated gas. The researchers tried asking why they had injured themselves, why they had ripped out their own guts, and why they wanted to be given the gas again. Only one response was given. I must stay awake. In preparation for being sealed in the chamber again, the subjects were connected to an EEG monitor and had their restraints padded for long-term confinement. To everyone's surprise, all three stopped struggling the moment it was let slip that they were going back on the gas. It was obvious that at this point all three were putting up a great struggle to stay awake. One of the subjects that could speak was humming loudly and continuously. The mute subject was straining his legs against the leather bonds with all his might, first left then right, then left again, for something to focus on. The remaining subject was holding his head off his pillow and blinking rapidly. Having been the first to be wired for EEG, most of the researchers were monitoring his brain's waves in surprise. They were normal, most of the time, but sometimes flatlined inexplicably. It looked as if they were repeatedly suffering brain death before returning to normal. As they focused on papers scrolling out of the brainwave monitor, only one nurse saw his eyes slip shut, and the same moment his head hit the pillow. His brainwaves immediately changed to that of a deep sleep, then fainted for the last time as his heart simultaneously stopped. The only remaining subject that could speak started screaming to be sealed in now. His brainwaves showed the same flatness as one who has just died from falling asleep. The commander gave the order to seal the chamber with both subjects inside, as well as 3 researchers. One of the named 3 immediately drew his gun and shot the commander point blank in between the eyes, then turned the gun on the mute subject and blew his brains out as well. He pointed the gun at the remaining subject, still restrained to a bed, as the remaining members of the medical research team fled the room.
I won't be locked in here with these things. Not with you! What are you? I must know.
Have you forgotten so easily? We are you. We are the madness that lurks within you all, begging to be free at every moment in your deepest animal mind. We are what you hide from in your beds every night. We are what you sedate into silence and paralyze when you go to the nocturnal haven we cannot tread.
The researcher paused, then aimed at the subject's heart and fired. The EEG flattened and the subject weakly choked out.